She was on her knees on concrete, so hot it burned through denim. Handcuffs bit into her wrists behind her back. Sheriff Wade Brennan pressed the sole of his boot against her shoulder blade and laughed, actually laughed, as her FBI badge clattered across the pavement. FBI? His voice dripped with mockery. Prove it, sweetheart. The other deputies joined in. Someone was recording on their phone. The small crowd at the gas station watched in silence. Nobody moved to help. They thought she was just another troublesome journalist. They thought wrong. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This is the story of how one woman brought down a 20-year corruption empire. Not with guns, not with backup, but with something far more dangerous. Receipts. And she'd been collecting them for 18 months. Del Rio, Texas. Population 35,000. Right on the Mexican border. The kind of town where the local police didn't just enforce the law. They were the law. Brooklyn Lane pulled her rental sedan into the Chevron station on Route 90. It was 2:14 p.m. on a Tuesday. March weather in Texas. Hot, dry, dusty. She'd just finished topping off the tank when the patrol car rolled up behind her, lights flashing. No siren, just lights. Deputy Martinez stepped out. Mid-30s, aviator sunglasses, the kind of swagger that came from never being questioned. He took his time walking over. "License and registration," he said. No greeting, no explanation. Brooklyn kept her hands visible. "Of course, officer. May I ask what this is about?" "Tail lights out." She glanced at her rear lights through the side mirror, both working perfectly. She'd checked them that morning, habit from 18 months of extreme caution. "I believe they're both functioning, officer." Martinez's jaw tightened. "You calling me a liar?" "Not at all. I'm happy to step out and check with you." "Stay in the vehicle." He took her documents back to his patrol car. 40 minutes passed. Brooklyn sat with her hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. She could see Martinez in his car, occasionally glancing at her in the rear view, talking on his radio. The gas station attendant had gone inside. The few other customers kept their distance. When Martinez finally returned, he had 2 more patrol cars with him. The third vehicle wasn't a patrol car. It was a black Ford F-250 with light bars and a sheriff's star on the door. Sheriff Wade Brennan stepped out like he owned the ground he walked on. 55 years old, sun-weathered skin, silver hair cropped military short. His badge sat crooked on his chest. Deliberately, Brooklyn noted. A power move. The kind of man who bent rules because he could. A small crowd had started to gather. A few locals, some truckers, a family with kids getting snacks, all watching. Brennan took Brooklyn's documents from Martinez without looking at them. Instead, he studied her through the driver's window. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." Brooklyn complied, slowly, hands visible. "Deputy Martinez says you've been acting hostile." "I've been cooperative, Sheriff. I've simply been waiting." "Waiting?" Brennan smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "For 40 minutes? That's patient, real patient. Makes me wonder what you're so calm about." He gestured to Martinez. "Check the trunk." "Sir, do you have probable cause for—" "I said check the trunk." Martinez popped it open. Inside, a camera bag, recording equipment, charging cables, and a leather-bound notebook. Brennan pulled it out, flipped it open, started reading aloud. Source X reports that local police collect protection fees from Latino business owners. Estimates range from $500 to $5,000 per month. He looked up. "What is this?" "That's my work product, Sheriff. I'm a journalist, and that's protected under—" "You're a journalist." Brennan handed the notebook to Martinez. "Hear that, boys? We got ourselves a journalist." "From where? New York? California?" "I'm freelance." "Freelance." He drew out the word like it was poison. "And you're down here writing stories about us. About me." Brooklyn met his gaze. "I'm writing about the community, Sheriff. Just asking questions." "Well," Brennan's smile widened. Let me give you some answers. Brooklyn slowly reached for her phone in her jacket pocket. I'd like to document this stop if that's... Brennan's hand shot out. He grabbed the phone from her grip before she could raise it. You want to document something? He held it up to the crowd. Document this. He threw it on the concrete. Once, twice, 3 times. The screen spiderwebbed, then shattered completely. Plastic and glass scattered across the pavement. The crowd murmured. One woman covered her mouth, but nobody moved. Nobody said a word. Brooklyn forced herself to stay calm. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her voice stayed level. That's destruction of personal property. I'll need your badge number for the complaint I'm filing. Complaint? Brennan laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. You can file it from a cell. He nodded to Martinez. Cuff her. On what charge? Assaulting an officer. I haven't touched anyone. You tried to strike Deputy Martinez when he approached your vehicle. I saw it. He saw it. Deputy Garza over there saw it. Brennan gestured to the 3rd officer. That's 3 sworn statements against your word. Martinez pulled out handcuffs. Brooklyn didn't resist, didn't fight. She let him cuff her hands behind her back, felt the metal bite into her wrists, felt the sun beating down on her neck. As they pushed her toward the patrol car, she glanced at the crowd one more time. A teenage kid was recording on his phone. An older man shook his head slowly. A Latina woman had tears in her eyes. Nobody intervened. Brooklyn noted the time on the patrol car's dashboard as they shoved her into the back seat. 14:32. She would remember that timestamp. Through the patrol car's dusty window, Brooklyn watched the crowd disperse. The teenage kid with the phone had already been approached by Deputy Garza. The video was probably deleted by now. The older man walked quickly to his truck. The Latina woman hurried her children toward their van, glancing back over her shoulder like she expected to be next. This was fear. Systematic, practiced fear. This was what 18 months of investigation had taught her. Del Rio wasn't just a town with a corruption problem. It was a town where corruption had replaced the law entirely. Where the police didn't serve the community, they controlled it. And nobody fought back because they'd learned that fighting back only made things worse. Brooklyn tested the handcuffs. Standard issue, double locked. Her wrists were already starting to ache. The patrol car smelled like stale coffee and sweat. No camera inside. She'd clocked that immediately. The dashboard camera had a piece of tape over the lens. Of course it did. Martinez climbed into the driver's seat. He looked at her in the rearview mirror. You should have just left town, he said quietly. Almost gently. That's what the others did. How many others? He didn't answer. Started the engine. As they pulled away from the gas station, Brooklyn caught one last glimpse of her rental car still parked at the pump, trunk open, her equipment scattered. Her destroyed phone glinting in the sun. But Brennan and his deputies didn't know about the backup phone in her shoe. They didn't know about the micro recorder she'd been wearing in her bra strap for 18 months. They didn't know that every word they'd just said had been transmitted in real time to an FBI server in San Antonio. 14:32, Tuesday, March 12th, the beginning of the end. The Del Rio Police Department occupied a squat brick building on South Main Street. It looked more like a bunker than a police station. Small windows, heavy doors, the kind of place designed to keep people in, not welcome them. Martinez pulled into the back lot, away from the street, away from witnesses. Inside, the station was exactly what Brooklyn had expected. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow-green. The air smelled like disinfectant trying to cover something worse. Sweat, mildew, old coffee. They walked her past the front desk, empty, nobody on duty, and down a narrow hallway. Linoleum floors, beige walls with water stains. Photos of past sheriffs lined one wall. Brennan's picture was in the center, larger than the others. He'd been sheriff for 23 years. 23 years of this. The interrogation room was at the end of the hall. Martinez opened the door and guided her inside. A metal table, 2 chairs, concrete walls, a camera mount in the corner, but no camera, just the empty bracket. Brooklyn filed that away. "Sit," Martinez said. She sat. The metal chair was cold even through her jeans. "I need to make a phone call. I'm entitled to—" "Phone system's down." Martinez didn't even try to make it sound convincing. "Might be back up in a few hours. Might not." He left her there, cuffed, alone. The door clicked shut. Heavy. Final. Brooklyn counted to 60, then looked around the room. No two-way mirror, too obvious. But there would be audio somewhere, maybe multiple sources. She scanned the ceiling corners, the light fixture, the air vent. There, a small black circle in the vent grating. Lens or microphone, probably both. She shifted in the chair, testing the handcuffs again. If she needed to, she could slip them. She'd been trained for that. But not yet. She needed to see how far they'd go, needed them to feel confident, needed them to talk. 18 months of building a case, and she was finally inside their house. The fluorescent lights buzzed. The air conditioning clicked on with a rattle. Somewhere down the hall, a door slammed. Brooklyn waited. She was very, very good at waiting. The door opened 90 minutes later. Sheriff Brennan walked in carrying a manila folder. He tossed it on the table. It landed with a slap that echoed off the concrete walls. He didn't sit, just stood over her, arms crossed. "You know what this is?" Brooklyn didn't answer. "This is your file, and it's interesting reading." He flipped it open. Brooklyn Lane, 29 years old. Last known address in Austin. No current employer listed. History of... He paused for effect. Activism. Protest arrests. Disorderly conduct. That file is fabricated. Is it? Brennan leaned down, hands on the table. Close enough that she could smell his aftershave. Or maybe you're just the kind of person who thinks rules don't apply to you, who comes into other people's towns and stirs up trouble. I'd like to contact my lawyer. Phone's still down. Then I'd like to speak with a superior officer, someone from the Texas Rangers, perhaps. Brennan smiled. You don't get it, do you? There's no cavalry coming. There's no one to call. You're in my house now. He pulled out the chair across from her and finally sat. Relaxed, like they were old friends having coffee. I've handled 8 women just like you, he said conversationally. Journalists, activists, bleeding hearts. They come down here thinking they're gonna save the poor immigrants, expose the corrupt small-town cops. You know what happened to them? Brooklyn kept her face neutral. They left, drove right back north with their tails between their legs, because they figured out real fast that nobody here wants to be saved, and nobody's gonna believe their little stories. He tapped the fabricated file. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign a statement admitting you filed a false report, and you're going to get the hell out of Texas. Or... He let it hang. Or what? Or you're going to see just how creative our justice system can be. Brennan opened the folder wider, turned it so Brooklyn could see. Inside were police reports. Booking photos, not of her, but of someone who looked similar enough in low resolution. Arrest records from Austin, Dallas, Houston. All fake. All professionally done. Let's see. Brennan read from the top page. June 2022, arrested for disorderly conduct during a protest at the Austin Capitol. September 2022, trespassing on private property. That was a construction site, looks like. January 2023, assault on a security officer at a mall in Houston. He looked up. Want me to keep going? None of that is real. Run my fingerprints through IAFIS. Check with the FBI database. The FBI database. Brennan leaned back in his chair. You watch a lot of TV, Brooklyn? Think this is CSI? We're a small department. We don't have direct access to federal databases. We have to submit requests, and those take time. Then submit a request. Oh, I will. Should hear back in 3-4 weeks? He shrugged. Course, you'll be in county lockup until then. No bail. You're a flight risk. Out-of-towner with a history of violence. Brooklyn forced herself to breathe slowly, to stay calm. This is illegal detention. You know it. I know it. What I know, Brennan said, leaning forward again, is that you've been driving around my town for weeks asking questions about me, about my department, talking to people who've got no business talking to journalists, making accusations. Reporting facts isn't making accusations. Facts. He laughed. Here's a fact for you. I've been sheriff of Del Rio for 23 years. I've kept this town safe, kept the crime rate down, kept the drug traffickers from turning us into Juarez. You know how I did that? Brooklyn didn't answer. By not letting outsiders come in here and tell me how to do my job. By making sure everyone understands that there's one law in this town, mine. He stood up, collected the folder. You've got two choices. Sign the statement and leave, or spend the next 72 hours in a cell the size of a closet in 100-degree heat, and then we'll talk about charges. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. I run this town, Brooklyn. FBI database, Texas Rangers, whatever you think is going to save you, none of that matters here. Only I matter. The door slammed shut behind him. 6 hours later, they moved her to a holding cell, 8 feet by 8 feet, a metal bench bolted to the wall, a toilet with no seat, no window. The temperature had to be pushing 95 degrees. The AC was either broken or deliberately turned off. Brooklyn sat on the bench and assessed. Her wrists were raw from the handcuffs. Her throat was dry. They hadn't offered water, hadn't offered food. Standard intimidation tactics. But she'd been trained for worse than this. At hour 7, she made her decision. When Deputy Martinez came to check on her, she was ready. I need to speak with Sheriff Brennan. Martinez looked surprised. You ready to sign the statement? I'm ready to clarify my situation. 15 minutes later, Brennan walked into the cell, arms crossed, that same infuriating smirk. You wanted to talk? Brooklyn stood. Slowly. She bent down and removed her left shoe, then peeled back the insole. The FBI badge was thin, specially designed for undercover work. She held it up between 2 fingers. Special Agent Brooklyn Lane, FBI San Antonio Field Office, badge number 7429. I'm conducting a federal investigation into public corruption under Title 18, United States Code, Section 1951. You are currently in violation of 18 U.S.C. 111, assault on a federal officer. For just a moment, maybe half a second, uncertainty flickered across Brennan's face. Then he laughed. He actually laughed. Martinez! He called over his shoulder. Martinez, get in here. You gotta see this. Brooklyn kept her hand steady, kept the badge visible, but she could already feel it slipping away, could feel the hope turning to dread. This wasn't going to work. Martinez appeared in the doorway. 2 other deputies crowded behind him, Garza and someone Brooklyn didn't recognize. Brennan took the badge from her, held it up to the fluorescent light like he was inspecting a counterfeit bill. FBI. He turned it over. Special Agent. Looks pretty official, doesn't it? Martinez stepped closer. Is that real? Real? Brennan handed it to him. Sure. You can buy these on Amazon for $19.95. I've seen better ones at Halloween stores. The deputies laughed. Garza pulled out his phone and started recording. Say it again, Garza said, filming. Tell us you're FBI. Brooklyn kept her voice level. I am Special Agent Brooklyn Lane. If you call ASAC Richard Okafor at the San Antonio Field Office and provide authentication code Tango 77 Whiskey, he will confirm my identity. Tango 77 Whiskey, Brennan repeated slowly, mockingly. You hear that, boys? She's got codes and everything. Very professional. Martinez was examining the badge more closely now, his smile fading slightly. Sir, it looks like a fake. Brennan snatched it back. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to call the FBI, the actual FBI, and I'm going to ask them if they have an agent named Brooklyn Lane working in Del Rio, Texas. He pulled out his phone, made a show of searching for a number. Let's see, FBI San Antonio Field Office. Here we are. Brooklyn's stomach dropped. She knew what was coming. Standard operating procedure for undercover agents. No confirmation through public channels. No verification unless the proper protocols were followed. Okafor couldn't acknowledge her identity over a general inquiry line. Brennan put the phone on speaker. Yeah, hi, this is Sheriff Wade Brennan, Del Rio Police. I need to verify if you have an agent named Brooklyn Lane currently assigned to our area. A pause, then a professional female voice. I'm sorry, Sheriff. I have no record of that name in our current personnel directory. Is there anything else I can help you with? Brennan's smile was triumphant. No, ma'am. That's all I needed. He hung up, held up the badge. Amazon, 1995. They released her the next morning with a warning, 24 hours to leave Del Rio. Brooklyn didn't leave. Instead, that evening, she walked into the town council meeting at Del Rio Town Hall. Public forum. Open to all residents. She'd researched this. Texas open meetings law required public comment periods. They couldn't bar her without cause. The council chambers were small, maybe 60 seats, half of them filled. Local business owners, a few families, some elderly residents. They all turned to look when she entered. The woman who'd been arrested yesterday. Word traveled fast in small towns. Brooklyn took a seat in the back row. At the front table sat 5 council members. In the center, Mayor Linda Cortez. 60 years old, silver-gray hair pulled into a tight bun, reading glasses on a chain. She wore a navy blazer and pearl earrings, the picture of respectable small-town authority. Sheriff Brennan sat in the front row, off to the side. Not officially part of the council, but clearly present as an observer. He spotted Brooklyn immediately. Smiled, waved with 2 fingers. The meeting dragged through routine business. Budget reports, zoning discussions, permit approvals. Brooklyn waited. Finally, Mayor Cortez announced public comments. Brooklyn stood, walked to the microphone at the center aisle. The room went quiet. State your name for the record, Cortez said coolly. Brooklyn Lane. I'm here to report an incident of illegal detention and destruction of property by the Del Rio Police Department. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Brennan's smile did not waver. Cortez removed her reading glasses, folded them carefully. Ms. Lane, the council is aware that you were detained yesterday on charges of assaulting an officer. If you have a complaint about your arrest, you're welcome to file a formal grievance through the appropriate channels. The appropriate channels would be this public forum, Mayor. I'm a journalist conducting research in your community, and You were arrested lawfully, Cortez interrupted. We've reviewed the incident report. Deputies Martinez, Garza, and Sheriff Brennan all witnessed your aggressive behavior. If you're dissatisfied with the outcome, you may appeal to the county court. I have evidence that... What evidence, Ms. Lane? Cortez's voice was silk over steel. The phone you claim was destroyed? We have no record of that. The camera equipment you say was seized? All returned to you this morning undamaged. Unless you have new information, I'm afraid this council cannot help you. Brooklyn held up her replacement phone. She'd bought it that morning. I can provide sworn testimony about... Testimony. Mayor Cortez smiled thinly. Ms. Lane, this is a town council meeting, not a trial. We don't take testimony here. Councilmember Garcia, sitting to Cortez's right, nodded. If you believe a crime has been committed, file a police report. File a police report with the department that detained me illegally? There was nothing illegal about your detention, Councilmember Rodriguez said from the left side of the table. You were arrested on probable cause, processed according to protocol, and released within 24 hours. That's standard procedure. Brooklyn looked around the room. The other residents were staring at their laps. Nobody met her eyes. She recognized one of them, the Latina woman from the gas station, the one who'd had tears in her eyes. Now she sat rigid, hands clasped tightly, looking at nothing. I understand that several other journalists have attempted to report on law enforcement activities in Del Rio over the past few years, Brooklyn said. What happened to them? They left, Mayor Cortez said simply. Just as you should. Because they were harassed? Because they realized there was no story here. Del Rio is a peaceful community. We've had the same sheriff for over 2 decades because he keeps us safe. Crime rates are low. Residents are satisfied. Cortez leaned forward slightly. If you're looking for corruption, Ms. Lane, you're looking in the wrong place. Sheriff Brennan stood up from his seat, turned to face Brooklyn directly. I think what Mayor Cortez is trying to say, he announced loudly enough for the whole room to hear, is that we don't appreciate outsiders coming here and making accusations, especially fake FBI agents. A few people laughed. Others shifted uncomfortably. This is your last warning, Cortez said. She picked up her gavel. Leave Del Rio, Ms. Lane. There's nothing for you here. She banged the gavel once, sharp, final. Meeting adjourned. The council members stood, began gathering their papers. Brennan walked toward the exit, pausing to pat one of the elderly residents on the shoulder, playing the good sheriff. Brooklyn remained at the microphone for a moment longer. Then she turned and walked out. Behind her, she heard whispers, felt the weight of eyes on her back. Nobody followed her. On the wall near the exit hung a banner, Del Rio, 20 years of safe community. She took a photo of it with her phone, evidence. The Del Rio Herald had shut down 5 years ago. The building still stood on East Garfield, windows papered over, a for-lease sign faded by sun and weather. Brooklyn found Carlos Ruiz in the parking lot behind it. He was working under the hood of a Chevy pickup, his mobile mechanic business, according to the magnetic sign on the truck's door. 38 years old, stocky build, grease stains on his hands and forearms. He looked up when her shadow fell across the engine block. Not taking new customers today, he said without looking at her face. I'm not looking for a mechanic. My name is Brooklyn Lane. I know who you are. He grabbed a wrench, adjusted something in the engine. Everybody knows who you are. The fake FBI agent who got arrested. I'm not fake. Don't matter what you are. You need to leave me alone. Brooklyn stepped closer. You were a deputy here. Del Rio PD, 2019 to 2023. You were dismissed for insubordination. Carlos's jaw tightened. He slammed the hood shut. Who told you that? Public records. Your termination was listed as refusing to follow orders. What orders? Lady, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to walk away, right now. I know what you're trying to do. Carlos threw the wrench into his toolbox. Hard. You're trying to get me killed, or thrown in jail, or both. You think you're the first person to come sniffing around asking questions about Brennan? You think you're special? He grabbed a rag, wiped his hands. There were 8 before you. 8 journalists, activists, whatever. You know where they are now? Gone. Smart enough to leave while they still could. I'm not going anywhere. Then you're stupid. Carlos picked up his toolbox. And I can't help stupid people. It's bad for business, bad for my health. He walked toward his truck. Brooklyn called after him. I have a way to protect you. If you testify, testify. Carlos turned back. You want to die? Because that's what happens when you testify against Brennan. That's what happens when you break the code. He climbed into his truck, started the engine. Brooklyn pulled out her FBI badge, the real one, held it up. Carlos looked at it through the windshield. His expression didn't change. He drove away. 20 minutes later, Carlos's truck pulled back into the parking lot. He sat behind the wheel for a long time before getting out. When he finally did, he looked older, tired. "Let me see that badge again." Brooklyn handed it over. He examined it carefully this time, front and back, ran his thumb over the seal. "You really FBI?" "Yes." "And you've been here 18 months?" "Undercover, building a case." Carlos handed the badge back, leaned against his truck. "Okay, I'll talk, but not here." They drove separately to a rest stop 15 miles outside town. Picnic tables, vending machines, empty at 4 in the afternoon. Carlos bought a Coke from the machine, drank half of it before he spoke. "The system works like this," he said quietly. "Brennan and his deputies stop migrants, anyone who looks like they might be undocumented. They threaten deportation unless they pay. $5,000 per person. If they can't pay, they get forced to work. Ranches, construction, cleaning houses, no wages, work off the debt." Brooklyn had her phone out, recording audio. "How long has this been going on?" "Long as I was there. Probably longer. 20 years, maybe." "And the money goes where?" "Offshore accounts. Cayman Islands. Brennan's got a whole setup. He keeps records, old school, paper ledger, names, amounts, dates, everything documented." "Where's the ledger?" "Safe in his office. Only 2 people have keys, Brennan and Mayor Cortez." "You've seen it?" "Once, before I figured out what I was looking at." Carlos crushed the empty Coke can. "That's when I started asking questions. That's when Brennan labeled me a problem. 3 weeks later, I was fired for insubordination." "Will you testify?" "Against Brennan? Against the whole department?" He shook his head. "They'll kill me." "Not if you're in federal protection. Witness security program, new identity, new location, full—" "I have a family," Carlos interrupted. "A wife, 2 kids. You asking me to uproot their entire lives?" Brooklyn met his eyes. "I'm asking you to help me stop this, before there's a 48th victim." Carlos stared at the horizon. The sun was starting to set, orange and pink bleeding across the Texas sky. "Give me time to think," he finally said. "Before you go," Brooklyn said, "I need you to understand something. Everything I do, everything I record, it's backed up in real time to FBI servers. I have equipment they don't know about." She opened her jacket, showed him the tiny microphone clipped inside the collar, disguised as a button. "This has been running for 18 months. Every conversation, every threat, every transaction I've witnessed. It transmits to a secure cloud server. Even if they destroy the device, the recordings are already stored." Carlos looked at it. "They took your phone, your equipment. They took my obvious equipment, the stuff I let them see." She pulled a small device from her pocket, looked like a lipstick tube. "This is a backup recorder, voice activated, and the bag they confiscated yesterday, it had another microphone sewn into the lining." "Where's that bag now?" "Evidence locker at the station, which is—" Brooklyn checked her phone, pulled up a building schematic. "Approximately 10 meters from Mayor Cortez's office at Town Hall. Walls are thin in that building. Built in 1973, cinder block and drywall." Carlos understood. "You're recording them." "Every word. If Brennan meets with Cortez in her office, if they discuss anything related to this operation, I'll have it." "That's—" Carlos paused. "That's actually pretty smart. I've been doing this a long time." Brooklyn closed her jacket. "If you decide to help, I can protect you. The FBI has resources. We can get you and your family into WITSEC. But I need that ledger, Carlos. It's the physical evidence that makes everything else stick." "I'll think about it," he said again. But this time, his voice sounded different. This time, he sounded like he might actually say yes. That night, Brooklyn parked 3 blocks from Town Hall. Good sightline to the building, dark enough to be invisible. The town council meeting had ended at 7. Most of the building's lights were off now, But on the second floor, one window remained lit, Mayor Cortez's office. Brooklyn put in her earpiece, connected to the remote monitoring feed from the microphone in her confiscated bag. The signal was weak but functional. She could hear rustling, movement in the evidence room, then voices, faint, getting closer. She turned up the gain, footsteps on tile, a door opening. The sound quality improved. They were in or near Cortez's office now. Brennan's voice. "We need to talk about the Lane woman." Brooklyn adjusted the frequency, pulled out a legal pad and pen, started making notes with timestamps. This was it. This was what she'd been waiting for. The evidence room was 10 meters from Cortez's office. The microphone wasn't in the same room where they were talking, but it was close enough. Voices carried through the old building's thin walls, through the ventilation system. Close enough to hear, close enough to record. Brooklyn watched the lit window, saw shadows moving behind the blinds. 2 figures. She pressed record on her backup device. Belt and suspenders. The primary feed was already streaming to the FBI server, but she always kept local copies too. "Start talking," she whispered. In the town hall, Brennan and Cortez began to discuss how to handle her, and Brooklyn Lane recorded every single word. The audio crackled, then cleared. Brennan's voice. "The journalist is handled. Scared her off. She'll be gone by tomorrow." Cortez. "You're sure?" She seemed persistent at the council meeting. "Trust me, they always leave." The fake FBI badge was a nice touch, though. I'll give her credit for creativity. A pause. Papers rustling. Cortez. "Did she actually have evidence?" "Nothing that matters. Some notes, a broken phone. Martinez confiscated her recording equipment. It's in evidence lockup now. She's got nothing." "Good." Cortez's voice was crisp, businesslike. "We can't afford another incident like 2021. That reporter from Houston nearly doesn't count. He left. They all leave." Brooklyn wrote faster. Her hand was cramping, but she didn't stop. Brennan again. "Speaking of business, next group arrives Tuesday. 15 people. That's 5,000 each." Cortez. 75,000. Split 2 ways. 37.5 apiece. I'll make the deposit Wednesday night. Usual account? Cayman, yes. Same routing number as last time. Brooklyn felt her heart racing. This was it. Direct admission, money laundering, extortion, conspiracy, all recorded, all time-stamped. She checked her phone. The primary transmission was still active. The data was flowing to the FBI server in real time. Even if Brennan found her right now, even if they destroyed every device she had, this conversation was already preserved in federal databases. Evidence. Admissible, undeniable evidence. "Make sure Martinez keeps a low profile for a few weeks," Cortez continued. "After that scene at the gas station, we don't need attention." "He's solid. All my guys are solid." "They'd better be. We've built this operation for 2 decades. I won't see it destroyed by some journalist with a notebook." "You won't," Brennan said. "I promise you that." The recording continued. Brooklyn kept writing. At midnight, Brooklyn used her encrypted phone to call ASAC Richard Okafor. He answered on the second ring. "Lane. Status report." "Sir, I have confession on tape. Brennan and Mayor Cortez discussing extortion payments. $75,000 from a new group arriving Tuesday. Direct mention of Cayman Island accounts." A pause. That's exactly what we need. Excellent work." "I also have a potential witness. Former deputy Carlos Ruiz. He's seen the ledger, knows the system inside and out. If I can convince him to testify..." "No," Okafor's voice was firm. "Abort the operation. Extract immediately." Brooklyn froze. "Sir, you've been compromised. They know you're investigating. The situation is too dangerous. We'll use the recordings you've already collected and build the case from Washington." "With respect, sir, I'm this close to getting the physical ledger. That's the smoking gun. That's what makes this case airtight. Agent Lane, that's an order. Extract within 48 hours. Something in his voice was off. Too quick. Too eager to shut down the investigation when they were on the verge of breakthrough. Understood, sir, Brooklyn said. But she didn't understand. She ended the call and sat in her car, staring at the dark town hall building. Her instincts were screaming. Something wasn't right. 3 hours later, at 3:47 a.m., Brooklyn's phone buzzed. Text from Carlos. They know. Brennan just called me. Asked about the FBI woman. You've been compromised. Get out. Brooklyn's blood went cold. She called him immediately. He answered, whispering. How did they know to contact you? Brooklyn asked. I don't know. I was careful. Nobody saw us at the rest stop. What exactly did Brennan say? He said, I know you met with the Lane woman today. I know what she's trying to do. If you talk to her again, you're done in this town. You and your family. Carlos's voice was shaking. Brooklyn, he knew the timing. He knew where we met. Someone told him. Who else knew about our meeting? Nobody. Just you and me. Brooklyn's mind raced. She'd reported to Okafor at midnight. 3.5 hours later, Brennan knew about Carlos. No, that wasn't possible. She pulled up her encrypted email on her phone, logged into the FBI internal system using her emergency access credentials, found her recent reports to Okafor. Then she saw it. Okafor had forwarded her last 3 briefings, not to FBI leadership in Washington, to District Attorney Paul Hendricks, and Hendricks had CC'd someone with a Del Rio PD email address. The leak wasn't coming from Carlos. The leak was coming from inside the FBI. Brooklyn scrolled through the email chain. It was all there. Every report she'd filed for the past 6 months, every piece of intelligence, every witness interview, all forwarded from ASAC Okafor to DA Hendricks with subject lines like FYI and for your awareness. And Hendricks had been forwarding them to someone identified only as WB at delriopd.gov. Wade Brennan. The corruption didn't stop at the Del Rio city limits. It ran through the district attorney's office. It ran through the FBI regional office. Brooklyn felt sick. She clicked on Hendricks's profile, saw his bio. Born in Del Rio, graduated from Del Rio High School, served as assistant DA before being appointed district attorney for Val Verde County. Then she found the family connection. Hendricks's mother was Elena Cortez Hendricks, sister to Mayor Linda Cortez. They were family. Of course they were. And Okafor? She dug deeper, found donations to his re-election campaign for some local board position he held. Significant donations from a PAC that, when she traced it, led back to shell companies registered in Cayman Islands, the same offshore network Brennan used. Brooklyn sat back in her car seat, stared at the ceiling. She'd been operating under the assumption that the corruption was local, a small-town problem. But this was bigger. This was a network. This was systematic infiltration. And she was completely alone. She couldn't trust her chain of command, couldn't trust the local DA, couldn't trust anyone in the official system. She had evidence. She had recordings. But she had no way to deliver them through normal channels without Brennan being warned first. Brooklyn pulled up a new contact on her phone. Not FBI, not law enforcement, a journalist. Time for Plan B. Priya Sharma answered on the 4th ring, groggy. This better be good, it's 4 in the morning. My name is Brooklyn Lane. I'm an FBI agent with 18 months of recordings documenting systematic corruption in a Texas border town. My chain of command is compromised. I need a journalist who can't be intimidated. A pause. Then, I'm listening. They met at a diner 40 miles outside Del Rio, far enough to be safe, close enough to get there before dawn. Priya arrived first, 42 years old, sharp eyes behind wire-frame glasses, a leather messenger bag that probably cost more than Brooklyn's car. She'd won a Pulitzer 3 years ago for exposing police corruption in Baltimore. Brooklyn slid into the booth across from her, ordered coffee, waited for the waitress to leave. "Show me what you have," Priya said. Brooklyn pulled out her phone, played 30 seconds of the Brennan-Cortez conversation, the part about $75,000 and Cayman accounts. Priya's expression didn't change, but her posture shifted, leaned forward. "How much more of this do you have?" 127 audio files, 18 months of recordings, documented transactions, testimony from 47 victims, bank records I've obtained through federal subpoenas, and there's a physical ledger in Brennan's office safe that has everything: names, amounts, dates. And your FBI office? Compromised. My supervisor has been feeding my reports to the local DA, who's feeding them to Brennan. I can't go through official channels. Priya took off her glasses, cleaned them with her napkin. You want me to publish? I want you to help me hold a press conference, public, live-streamed, impossible to shut down or ignore. I'll testify under oath. We'll release the recordings, force the FBI to act. When? Friday, 10 a.m., Austin Press Club. Priya looked at her for a long moment. You know they'll come after you. Your career, your credibility, everything. They already are, Brooklyn said. But they can't come after the truth if it's public. Priya held out her hand. I'm in. They spent the next hour planning. Priya made calls, woke up her editor, contacted the Austin Press Club. By 6 a.m. it was confirmed. Friday, March 15th, 10 o'clock in the morning, one of the main conference rooms. Capacity for 50 journalists. We'll live stream on 3 platforms simultaneously, Priya said, typing on her laptop. YouTube, Facebook, X. They can't take down all 3 at once. By the time anyone tries to stop it, the story will already be out. I need one more thing, Brooklyn said. Someone to authenticate the documents. A notary with credibility. You have someone in mind? Judge Martha Delgado, retired federal judge, 72 years old. She's known for being incorruptible. If she verifies the bank records and witness statements, it adds weight. Priya nodded. I know Judge Delgado. She hates corrupt cops more than anyone I've ever met. Her grandson was killed by a dirty officer in Houston. She'll do it. Brooklyn felt something close to relief. Not quite hope. She'd learned not to hope, but at least a sense that the plan might work. One problem, Priya said. You still need that ledger. Without it, they can claim the recordings are taken out of context. They can claim the bank records are falsified. But if you have Brennan's own handwritten records, I know. Can you get it? I'm going to try. That's not a plan. It's the only plan I have. Brooklyn finished her coffee. In the meantime, prepare everything else. Assume I won't get the ledger. Can we still make the case? We can make a hell of a case, Priya said. But with the ledger, it's ironclad. Then I'll get it. Brooklyn didn't know how yet, but she had 4 days. Wednesday morning, Brooklyn drove to Carlos's garage. It was destroyed. The front window was smashed. Tools scattered across the parking lot. One of the hydraulic lifts had been toppled over. Spray paint across the walls. Snitches get buried. Carlos sat on the curb, head in his hands. His wife stood next to him, holding their 2 kids close. The children were crying. Brooklyn parked and got out slowly. Don't, Carlos said without looking up. Don't come near us. Carlos, I'm sorry. I'll get you protection. Protection? He finally looked at her. His right eye was swollen shut, purple and black. Blood crusted around his nose. Where was your protection last night when 3 men kicked down my door? Where was your protection when they held a gun to my daughter's head? Brooklyn felt like she'd been punched. What? They came to my house. 2 a.m., ski masks, knew my kids' names, knew where they go to school, knew my wife's work schedule. Carlos stood up, wincing. They said if I talk to you again, they'll kill my family. Not me. My family. His wife was crying silently. The little girl, maybe 7 years old, clung to her mother's legs. I can get you into witness protection, Brooklyn said. Federal protection, new identities, new city, they'll never find— No. Carlos's voice was flat. Dead. I'm not uprooting my kids' entire lives. I'm not living in fear for the next 20 years. I'm done. The press conference is Friday. If you testify— I'm not testifying! He shouted it, then caught himself, lowered his voice. I'm not testifying, I'm not helping, I'm taking my family and we're leaving Del Rio, moving to San Antonio, maybe Austin, somewhere Brennan doesn't own. He'll find you. Maybe, but at least I'll have a chance. Carlos picked up a wrench from the ground. You should leave too, Brooklyn. You're not going to win this. Nobody beats Brennan. Nobody ever has. He turned away, walked to his truck with his family. Brooklyn stood in the parking lot surrounded by broken glass and scattered tools. She'd promised Carlos protection and delivered violence. She'd promised justice and delivered threats. Maybe he was right. Maybe nobody beat Brennan. Her phone buzzed. Text from Priya. Press conference confirmed. Do you have the witness? Brooklyn looked at Carlos's truck driving away. She texted back. No. Wednesday night, the Del Rio Police Department caught fire. Brooklyn heard the sirens from her motel room, grabbed her jacket and drove toward downtown. By the time she arrived, 3 fire trucks were already on scene. Smoke poured from the back of the building, the evidence room. She parked 2 blocks away and watched. Sheriff Brennan stood in the parking lot, arms crossed, watching his officers coordinate with firefighters. He didn't look concerned, didn't look surprised, because he'd probably started it himself. Brooklyn's phone rang. Unknown number. Agent Lane? A woman's voice. This is Deputy Chief Lisa Martinez, Del Rio Fire Department. I'm calling as a courtesy. The fire at the police station appears to have started in the evidence storage room. I understand you had property stored there. Yes, camera equipment, a bag. I'm sorry to inform you that the room sustained significant damage. Most items will be total losses. The fire marshal is investigating the cause, but initial reports suggest electrical failure. Electrical failure? Brooklyn repeated. Yes, ma'am. I'm very sorry. Brooklyn ended the call. The bag with the hidden microphone was gone. Burned. Destroyed. But Brennan didn't know, couldn't know, that every recording from that microphone had been transmitted in real time to FBI servers. The physical device was gone, but the data was preserved, encrypted, backed up, stored in 3 separate locations. They'd destroyed the recorder, but not the recordings. It was almost funny. Brooklyn watched the firefighters spray water into the smoking building, watched Brennan shake hands with the fire chief, watched him play the concerned sheriff, worried about his department's loss. Her phone buzzed again. This time a text from a number she didn't recognize. You have 24 hours to leave Del Rio. If you're still here Friday morning, there will be consequences. This is your final warning. No signature. Didn't need one. Brooklyn deleted the text, put her phone away. She wasn't leaving. Not now, not ever. They'd threatened her, arrested her, mocked her, destroyed her evidence, attacked her witness, but they hadn't stopped her, and tomorrow she was going to start pushing back. But first, she needed to survive tonight. Because if they were sending threats like this, it meant they were planning something worse. Brooklyn drove back to her motel, didn't sleep, sat in her car in the parking lot with the doors locked and her backup phone on the seat next to her, waiting. Thursday morning, the local news ran the story. Brooklyn saw it on the television in the motel breakfast area, the Del Rio morning show. A perky anchor with too much makeup smiled into the camera. In local news, District Attorney Paul Hendricks announced yesterday that a woman claiming to be an FBI agent has been harassing local law enforcement. Authorities say the woman, identified as Brooklyn Lane, has been presenting a fake badge and making false accusations against Sheriff Wade Brennan and his department. Cut to footage of Hendricks at a press conference, suit and tie, American flag in the background, the picture of official authority. "We take these allegations very seriously," Hendricks said gravely. "Ms. Lane has a history of mental health issues and was actually dismissed from FBI training several years ago. She's been impersonating a federal agent, which is itself a serious crime. We're currently working with the real FBI to bring charges." Brooklyn's hands clenched around her coffee cup. Mental health issues. Dismissed from training. All lies. All documented in fake records that would take weeks to disprove through official channels. And by then, the damage would be done. Her phone rang. "Priya, have you seen the news?" "I'm watching it now. They're trying to destroy your credibility before Friday, and it's working. My editor just got a call from ProPublica's legal team. They're concerned about liability, publishing accusations from someone who might be mentally unstable." "I'm not mentally unstable. Those records are fabricated." "I know that, but proving it takes time. And we don't have time." Priya paused. "Brooklyn, there's a chance they might pull the press conference. Too much legal risk." "They can't. They can. They might." Brooklyn closed her eyes. "Then we do it anyway. Just you and me. We live stream it ourselves. No official venue, no corporate backing, just the truth. That's career suicide for both of us. Better than letting them win." Silence on the line. Then, "Friday, 10 a.m. I'll send you the location." Thursday afternoon, Brooklyn returned to her motel room and found the door open. Not kicked in, not forced. Opened with a key. Someone had access. The motel manager? A deputy with a warrant? Or just Brennan's people paying for information? Didn't matter. Brooklyn drew her service weapon, a Glock 19 she'd kept hidden in her jacket, and swept the room. Empty, but thoroughly searched. Mattress flipped, drawers opened. Her suitcase unzipped and contents scattered. Her backup laptop was gone. She'd kept it under the bathroom sink, wrapped in a towel. Not the world's greatest hiding spot, but enough to fool a casual search. They'd been thorough. Brooklyn holstered her weapon and assessed. The laptop was encrypted with 256-bit AES encryption. Even with top-level decryption tools, it would take months to crack, maybe years. And she'd set it to wipe after 10 failed password attempts. So the data was probably safe. But they'd sent a message. "We can get to you anywhere. We know where you sleep. We can reach you whenever we want." Brooklyn grabbed what was left of her belongings, stuffed everything into her suitcase, checked out at the front desk. The manager wouldn't meet her eyes, confirmation that he'd been the one who'd given them access. She couldn't stay in Del Rio. Too exposed. She drove to a different motel in Eagle Pass, 30 miles west. Paid cash. Registered under a fake name. Parked her car 2 blocks away instead of in the motel lot. Then she sat on the edge of the scratchy motel bed and did something she rarely allowed herself to do. She questioned whether this was worth it. 47 victims. 20 years of corruption. Justice. Was it worth her life? Yes. Yes, it was. At 11:47 p.m. Thursday night, Brooklyn received an email, sent from a burner address, routed through multiple proxies, untraceable. Subject line, final warning. Body, leave Del Rio by midnight Friday or you will not leave alive. This is not a threat. This is a promise. We know where you are. We know what you're planning. The press conference will not happen. You will not testify. You will disappear and nobody will care. Your choice. Drive away tonight or get carried away in a bag. You have 13 hours. No signature. No details. Just cold, clinical certainty. Brooklyn read it 3 times. Her hands were shaking slightly. Not fear. Well, not just fear. Adrenaline. Her body preparing for fight or flight. She'd been threatened before. occupational hazard of undercover work. But this felt different. This felt real, because it was real. Carlos had been beaten. Her evidence had been burned. Her apartment had been searched. These weren't scare tactics anymore. This was systematic escalation. They were going to kill her. Brooklyn stood up, paced the motel room, looked at herself in the mirror above the dresser. She looked tired, scared, alone. But she wasn't backing down. She opened her laptop, started a new email, addressed it to Priya, Judge Delgado, her sister in California, and 3 other journalists whose work she respected. Subject: If anything happens to me. Body: Attached are encrypted files containing 18 months of evidence regarding corruption in Del Rio, Texas. Passwords will be automatically revealed if I don't check in every 12 hours. Please publish everything. She attached the files, set up the dead man's switch, hit send. Then she checked her gun. Full magazine, 1 in the chamber, 11 hours until the press conference. She just had to survive until then. Friday morning, 6:23 a.m. Brooklyn left Eagle Pass early. 2 hours to Austin. Plenty of time to reach the press conference. She took Highway 277 north. Empty roads, sunrise bleeding orange across the desert. The landscape was beautiful in that harsh, unforgiving way Texas could be. Her phone rang. Priya. Where are you? About 90 miles out. I'll be there by 9. Good. Judge Delgado confirmed. She'll be authenticating the documents on camera. And I've got confirmations from CNN, Washington Post, and the Texas Tribune. This is going to be big, Brooklyn. Let's hope we... Red and blue lights flashed in her rearview mirror. Brooklyn's stomach dropped. I've got to go. She ended the call. Checked the mirror again. Black Ford pickup. Light bar. Del Rio Sheriff's star on the door. They were 120 miles outside Del Rio. Outside their jurisdiction. This wasn't a traffic stop. This was an abduction. Brooklyn considered running, flooring it. Her rental sedan wouldn't outrun a pickup, but she could try to reach a populated area, find witnesses, call for help. But before she could decide, 2 more vehicles appeared, one ahead, one behind, boxing her in. She had no choice. Brooklyn pulled over, drew her weapon, held it ready. The driver's door of the lead truck opened. Sheriff Wade Brennan stepped out. He wasn't in uniform, jeans and a work shirt. No badge. This wasn't official. This was personal. 2 more men emerged from the other vehicles, Deputy Martinez, and someone Brooklyn didn't recognize. Bigger, rougher, not a cop. Hired muscle. Brennan walked toward her car. Slowly, no rush. He knew she had nowhere to go. They pulled her from the car, took her gun, zip-tied her hands in front of her, covered her head with a hood. The drive lasted maybe 20 minutes. Brooklyn tried to track turns, estimate direction, but gave up after the 4th or 5th change. They were deliberately disorienting her. When they finally stopped and pulled off the hood, she was in a warehouse. Empty. Abandoned. Rust on the metal walls. Broken windows high up letting in strips of dusty light. No one would hear her scream here. Brennan stood in front of her. Behind him, Martinez and the hired muscle. The 3rd man kept his hand near his belt. Gun, probably. Last chance, Brooklyn. Brennan's voice was almost gentle. Sign this. He held up a piece of paper. It's a confession. You're mentally unstable. You fabricated accusations. You apologized to me and my department. You leave Texas and never come back. Go to hell. Sign it and you walk out of here. Don't sign it. He shrugged. Tragic car accident. Happens all the time on these back roads. Woman falls asleep at the wheel. Vehicle catches fire. Nobody survives. You're going to kill me? Brooklyn kept her voice steady. Kill a federal agent? You think you'll get away with that? You're not a federal agent. FBI already disavowed you. You're just a disturbed woman with delusions. No. Brooklyn looked past him to Martinez. Deputy Martinez? You really okay with this? With murder? Martinez shifted uncomfortably, didn't answer. He does what I tell him, Brennan said. They all do. That's how this works. That's how it's always worked. The hired muscle stepped forward, pulled a gun. Brooklyn's heart hammered. This was it. This was really happening. Wait, she said. Brennan smiled. Ready to sign? No. Just wanted to make sure you heard this clearly. She looked directly at him. I have a GPS tracker, and you're completely fucked. Brennan's smile faltered. What? My watch. Brooklyn held up her zip-tied wrists, the standard-issue black sports watch she'd been wearing for 18 months. It's not a normal watch, it's a GPS tracker, standard equipment for undercover FBI agents operating in high-risk situations. Been transmitting my location in real time to the San Antonio field office since you pulled me over. Brennan looked at the watch, then at Brooklyn, then at Martinez. She's bluffing, he said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Am I? Brooklyn kept her eyes on his. You pulled me over at 6:34 a.m. on Highway 277, mile marker 89. That was outside your jurisdiction. That was kidnapping. Then you drove me. She calculated, approximately southwest for 22 minutes. We're probably in Maverick County now. You transported me across county lines against my will while I was transmitting a distress signal. Bullshit. Your phone is in my truck. I checked it. I didn't say phone. I said GPS tracker, built into the watch. It doesn't make calls, doesn't text, just transmits coordinates and a biometric reading. If my heart rate spikes, like it did when you pulled me over, it triggers an automatic emergency protocol. Martinez's face had gone pale. Boss, she's lying, Brennan insisted. But Brooklyn could see the doubt creeping in, could see him doing the math, calculating the risk. FBI policy, Brooklyn continued, her voice calm, almost conversational. When an undercover agent's emergency beacon activates, the nearest field office dispatches a tactical team immediately. They don't ask questions. They don't wait for confirmation. They just respond. In the distance, faint but growing, the sound of sirens. Brennan heard it. They all heard it. No, he whispered. The sirens grew louder. Brooklyn smiled. I told you. You're fucked. The warehouse doors exploded inward. FBI! Hands up! FBI! 6 tactical agents in full gear poured through, rifles raised, moving with precision. The hired muscle dropped his gun immediately. Hands up, smart. Martinez did the same, shaking, terrified. Brennan reached for his belt. Don't! An agent fired. Rubber bullet hit Brennan in the chest. He went down hard. 30 seconds later, it was over. Brennan on the ground, handcuffed. Martinez against the wall, cuffed. The hired muscle face down on the concrete. A man in an FBI windbreaker approached Brooklyn. 50s, silver hair, calm eyes. Special Agent Lane? He cut her zip ties with a knife. I'm Agent Marcus Cole, Houston Field Office. You okay? Brooklyn rubbed her wrists. I'm fine. How did you... Your tracker hit emergency mode at 6:34. Houston was closest clean office. He looked at Brennan. We've been monitoring the San Antonio office for 3 weeks. Had suspicions about Asak Okafor. Your investigation confirmed it. So you knew I was compromised? We suspected, but we needed evidence. You got it. Cole helped her stand. Come on, you've got a press conference to get to. Austin Press Club. 10:07 a.m. They'd held the room. Despite everything, despite the legal threats and the negative press and the manufactured scandal. They'd held the room. Brooklyn stood backstage, watching through a gap in the curtain. The main conference room was packed. At least 40 journalists. Camera crews from CNN, local news, independent media, 3 live stream cameras pointed at the podium. Priya was at the microphone. Professional, commanding. Thank you all for coming. I'm Priya Sharma, investigative reporter with ProPublica. What we're about to present is the result of an 18-month federal investigation into systematic corruption, extortion, and money laundering in Del Rio, Texas. Murmurs from the crowd. The evidence includes over 100 audio recordings, financial documents, and testimony from 47 victims. It implicates local law enforcement, a sitting mayor, and a district attorney. The murmurs got louder. And presenting this evidence today is the FBI agent who gathered it, despite being arrested, threatened, and this morning kidnapped at gunpoint. Priya looked toward the curtain. Please welcome Special Agent Brooklyn Lane. Brooklyn stepped onto the stage. The cameras focused on her. The live stream counters were climbing. 20,000 viewers, 30,000, 50,000. She walked to the podium. Brooklyn adjusted the microphone, looked directly at the cameras. My name is Brooklyn Lane. I'm a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, badge number 7429, currently assigned to the San Antonio field office. She held up her badge. The real one. On camera. Undeniable. For the past 18 months, I've been conducting an undercover investigation into Operation Border Justice, a systematic extortion ring targeting undocumented immigrants in Del Rio, Texas. The operation is run by Sheriff Wade Brennan and Mayor Linda Cortez, with the assistance of multiple deputies and the complicity of District Attorney Paul Hendricks. A reporter raised her hand. How do you know? I have 127 audio recordings documenting the operation. I have financial records showing offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. I have testimony from 47 victims who were extorted for amounts ranging from $3,000 to $10,000 each. Brooklyn pulled out a USB drive, held it up. This contains everything. And it's also been provided to the FBI director, the Justice Department, and 3 major news organizations. There's no containing this anymore. She paused. The corruption ends today. Priya stepped back to the podium. We're now going to play one of those recordings. This conversation took place Wednesday, March 13th, between Sheriff Brennan and Mayor Cortez in the mayor's office at Del Rio Town Hall. She nodded to a technician. The audio played through the speakers. Brennan's voice, crystal clear. Next group arrives Tuesday. 15 people. That's 5,000 each. Cortez. 75,000, split 2 ways. 37.5 apiece. I'll make the deposit Wednesday night. Usual account? Cayman, yes. Same routing number as last time. The room went silent. Priya put up a slide on the screen behind her. Bank records, account numbers, transaction histories. These are the Cayman accounts referenced in that recording. Over the past 5 years, more than $4.2 million have been deposited. We've traced the sources back to Del Rio and confirmed they match the testimony of victims. Another slide. A ledger page. Handwritten entries. Names. Amounts. Dates. This is from Sheriff Brennan's personal safe, seized this morning by FBI agents. It contains records going back 20 years. Flash bulbs popped. Journalists typed frantically. The evidence was undeniable. We also have footage, Priya said, from this morning's arrest. The screen changed. Video from a police body camera. Sheriff Wade Brennan in handcuffs, being walked out of the warehouse by FBI agents. His face was bruised from the rubber bullet. His expression was pure fury. An agent read him his rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Cut to Brennan being loaded into an FBI vehicle. Cut to the motorcade arriving at FBI San Antonio headquarters. Cut to Brennan being perp-walked through a crowd of cameras, hands cuffed behind his back, FBI windbreaker thrown over his shoulders. Sheriff Brennan has been charged with extortion, money laundering, conspiracy, kidnapping of a federal officer, and obstruction of justice, Priya said. He's being held without bail pending trial. More footage. Mayor Linda Cortez being arrested at Del Rio Town Hall, agents leading her out in handcuffs while town employees watched in shock. The video switched to live footage from Del Rio. A crowd had gathered outside the police station. Some people were crying, others were cheering. An elderly Latina woman held a sign, "Justice for Maria." Another sign, "We were afraid to speak. Now we can." The system was collapsing, and the whole country was watching. A CNN reporter stood up. "What about District Attorney Hendricks?" Brooklyn took the microphone back. DePaul Hendricks has been charged federally with obstruction of justice and conspiracy. We have evidence that he received reports about this investigation from a compromised FBI supervisor and forwarded them to Sheriff Brennan, effectively acting as a mole within the justice system. More gasps. ASAC Richard Okafor of the San Antonio field office has been suspended pending an internal investigation into his role in leaking classified information. We believe the corruption extended beyond Del Rio into federal law enforcement. Priya added, Mayor Cortez was arrested while attempting to delete files from her office computer. FBI forensics teams have recovered the data. It includes financial spreadsheets matching the ledger entries, communication logs with Brennan, and correspondence with offshore banking officials. On screen, footage of Cortez in an interrogation room, stone-faced, refusing to speak. Deputy Martinez has agreed to cooperate with investigators, Brooklyn said. He's providing testimony about the operation's inner workings in exchange for a reduced sentence. 9 other officers from the Del Rio Police Department have been suspended pending investigation. A reporter from the Texas Tribune raised her hand. How many victims in total? We've identified 47 victims willing to testify, but we believe the actual number is much higher, possibly hundreds over the past 2 decades. And they're all safe? They're all being protected. Federal witness protection for those who need it. Immigration relief for those who qualify. And we're working on getting them justice. 3 months later. Del Rio looked different now, not physically, same buildings, same streets, same Texas heat. But the atmosphere had changed. People walked differently, looked you in the eye. Fear had lifted. The new sheriff was the woman named Rosa Mendez, 43 years old, born in Del Rio. She'd been one of Brennan's victims back in 2019, extorted for $5,000 after being stopped on a fabricated traffic violation. Now, she wore the badge. Brooklyn attended the swearing-in ceremony at Town Hall, same building where Mayor Cortez had tried to shut her down 3 months ago. Different energy entirely. I swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the state of Texas, Rosa said, hand on a Bible, and to serve the people of Del Rio with integrity, transparency, and justice. The crowd, easily 200 people, applauded. The interim mayor, appointed by the governor after Cortez's arrest, stepped to the microphone. Sheriff Mendez will be overseeing comprehensive reforms. All officers will be retrained. Body cameras will be mandatory on every shift. An independent civilian review board will investigate complaints. And we're implementing quarterly audits of all department finances. More applause. Brooklyn stood in the back, watching. Agent Cole from Houston was next to her. You did good work, he said quietly. We did good work. Your team saved my life. That's the job. He paused. Speaking of which, Director wants you in Washington. They're creating a new task force. Public corruption. Focus on border regions. They want you to lead it. Brooklyn was quiet for a moment. Watched Rosa Mendez shake hands with community members. Saw children running around, laughing. Saw people who'd been silent for years now speaking freely. I'll think about it, she said. But she already knew her answer. This was just the beginning. The compensation fund was established 6 weeks after the arrests. $8.7 million. Seized from Brennan and Cortez's offshore accounts, their properties, their vehicles, everything liquidated, everything returned. Not enough to undo 20 years of trauma, but something. Brooklyn watched a news segment about it from her hotel room. A reporter interviewed several of the victims, a man named Jorge. They took $5,000 from me in 2021. Said if I didn't pay, they'd deport my wife. I worked 3 jobs to come up with that money. Now I'm getting it back. Plus interest. I don't have words. A woman named Anna. I was too afraid to even report it. Thought nobody would believe me. Thought they'd just hurt me worse. But Agent Lane believed us. She listened. The reporter turned to the camera. The compensation fund has paid out to 43 of the 47 identified victims so far. Several have used the money to start businesses, buy homes, or fund their children's education. For many, it's the first time in years they've felt safe in Del Rio. Cut to a small restaurant called Maria's Kitchen. Grand opening, bright paint, happy customers. The owner, Maria Rodriguez, the woman Brooklyn had seen at the gas station, the one with tears in her eyes, stood behind the counter, beaming. I always wanted to open a restaurant, she told the camera, but I never had the money. Now I do. And my kids can go to school without being afraid. That's everything. She held up a framed photo on the wall. Brooklyn recognized it immediately, the photo of her holding up her FBI badge at the press conference. Underneath, a plaque. To Agent Brooklyn Lane. Thank you for giving us our freedom back. Brooklyn turned off the TV, sat in the quiet, cried for the first time in months. Brooklyn drove to Del Rio one last time before heading to Washington. She parked in front of Maria's Kitchen, walked in. The lunch rush was winding down, families finishing their meals, the smell of homemade tortillas and carne asada, music playing softly from a radio. Maria looked up from the counter, her eyes widened. Agent Lane. Just Brooklyn. Maria came around the counter, pulled Brooklyn into a hug, tight, genuine. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for not giving up. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. Maria pulled back, kept her hands on Brooklyn's shoulders. For 5 years, I was afraid. Every day. Afraid they'd come for more money. Afraid they'd hurt my children. Afraid to speak. Afraid to exist. Her eyes were wet. Now my daughter tells me she wants to be an FBI agent. Like you. She wants to help people. Brooklyn felt her throat tighten. You were the brave one, she managed. You testified. That took courage. You gave me permission to be brave. Maria smiled. Lunch is on the house. Sit, eat. Brooklyn sat. For the first time in 18 months, she felt like she could breathe. Brooklyn sat at the counter, eating Maria's food, watching the restaurant bustle with life. And she thought about justice. Not the Hollywood version. Not the version where the hero rides in on a white horse and everything's fixed in 90 minutes. Real justice. Slow. Complicated. Messy. The kind of justice that takes 18 months of recording conversations, that requires patience and paperwork and backup plans, that demands you trust the system even when the system is broken. But it works. Sometimes, against all odds, it actually works. Justice isn't always fast, it isn't always easy, but when it comes, it's unstoppable. No one is above the law, no one is beneath it, and sometimes all it takes is one person willing to stand up and say, enough. 47 people in Del Rio were afraid to speak, afraid to resist, because they thought no one would listen, no one would care. But someone did listen, someone did care. And now they're free. That's what justice looks like. Brooklyn finished her meal, left a generous tip, hugged Maria one more time, walked out into the Texas sun. She had a flight to catch. Washington, D.C. A new task force. A new mission. Because Del Rio wasn't unique. There were other towns, other sheriffs, other victims. And Brooklyn Lane wasn't done. If this story touched you, share it. Because there are hundreds of Del Rios out there, hundreds of Brennans, hundreds of people waiting for someone to believe them. Subscribe Beat Stories to hear more stories about people who refuse to give up, about systems that break, and the people who fix them. And let me know in the comments, do you believe in justice? Because I do. I've seen it. I've fought for it. I've watched it win against impossible odds. And if you're out there right now, feeling powerless, feeling like no one will listen, I'm listening. We're all listening. And we're not stopping. Fade to black.
This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of what happens when truth meets visibility. At Beat Stories, we believe exposure is the first step to transformation. Subscribe and stay tuned, because the next story might be yours.